I call on Professor Mark Hargraves, Pro-Vice-Chancellor, Research, Collaboration and Partnerships, to introduce Mr. Sean Willmore, who has kindly agreed to deliver the occasional address.
Chancellor, colleagues, graduands, ladies and gentlemen, this morning the University is pleased to welcome Sean Willmore as our guest speaker. Sean Willmore is a former Australian park ranger and now founder and managing director of the Thin Green Line Foundation. He is the current president of the International Rangers Federation. Sean has travelled to and worked with rangers in over 50 countries on 6 continents, where he has been ambushed, held at gunpoint, charged by elephants and avoided militias. A Bachelor of Science graduate from the University of Melbourne, Sean's efforts to bring attention to the dangerous work undertaken by rangers has won him international acclaim. He started the Thin Green Line Foundation using profits from the documentary The Thin Green Line. He continues to be inspired by the men and women who serve on the front line as park rangers around the world. Please join me in welcoming Sean Willmore to deliver this morning's occasional address.
Thank you, one and all, and I'd just like to echo the Presiding Chancellor's sentiments, acknowledging the Wurundjeri people, the traditional owners of this land, and not just through sentiment, but as a true connection to some lessons we might learn to get us out of the trouble we are in at the moment as a humanity. I did graduate from the Bachelor of Science back in 1994, I think it was, back when Nirvana, Nevermind, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic and Pearl Jam's 10 all came out. If that means nothing to you, it shows you that your degree doesn't teach you everything. We wore flannel shirts, Blundstone boots, and life was a bit easier. I ended up majoring in botany, and much to the disappointment of my third-year botany lecturers, to find out why botany and not the sexier zoology, it was because I partied a little bit too hard with that grunge music in second year, and botany is what I could get into. I missed every Friday morning's lecture of Outline of Meteorology at 8 a.m. It was the only lecture I had that day, Thursday night being a uni night. I passed with 51% and needed that to graduate. I obviously studied too hard. I also met lifelong friends there. I'm still participating in the Barry Pang Kung Fu Club, which I started Kung Fu at Melbourne University. So outside of academia, there's other pursuits that have stayed with me. But I did get on to be a ranger. After a lot of hard work and trying to get it in the door, I became a ranger, and it was my life's ambition realised. Working in the parks, protecting nature, doing everything from rescues to animal work to people protection, and the list went on, firework. But there was something else that was churning within me, something bigger. And I met an Indigenous elder who said to me, when I asked for advice on bush tucker, bush food, he said, there's something bigger for you. And I said, well, how do I know what that is? And he said, in life, many opportunities come past you, but will you have the courage to grab it when you know? And he pointed to his heart, not to his head, when you know that's what you should do. Well, sometime down the future, I was at an International Ranger Congress. I met rangers from all over the world that showed me machete wounds, bullet holes, and had amazing stories like being chased up trees by elephants and then finding out there was lions in the tree also. But something clicked in me, and I went home, and a few months later I'd sold my car, remortgaged my house, and broke up with my fiancée. That was her fault, not mine. To travel the world to make a film I didn't know how to make, to go to countries I'd never been, but it was calling me strongly. And after that, we premiered the film simultaneously in 36 countries around the world, in 6 continents. And I went to give the money to the International Ranger Federation and say, here, this is for the widows of the rangers killed. And the then president said, you have to do more, take it further, set up the charity arm for the International Ranger Federation. So I did that. Not knowing how I do that, but I sat on a plane next to a lawyer who happened to be a lawyer that set up charities. Serendipity is something I would encourage you to take notice of as you go forward from this room. The foundation was set up, and from there you heard in the introduction that, yes, I've been charged by elephants. I wound up the window, and the African ranger next to me said, "That won't help you very much." We actually nearly got pushed off a cliff, but that's a much longer story I don't have time for today. I was ambushed by militias. We had 200 militia with AK-47s in Congo, and they stopped our vehicle, pointing their machine guns in the car. And the ranger next to me said, "This isn't good." I kind of realised that. But how do we get out of this situation? And on the other side of the car, there were some children saying, "Padiri, Padiri," and smiling and happy. And I said, "What's Padiri?" Or something to that effect. And he said, "They think you're a priest coming here to give aid." So I looked at this side and I looked at that side with the militias and their guns and the children smiling. Let's roll with Padiri. So I blessed the children and I turned to the militia and I blessed them. And they looked at each other and said, "You can go." And my friend who was in the back from Australia, he'd never been to Congo, Africa before, afterwards he said, "I can't believe my life depended on you being a priest." Now that wasn't taught in the outline of meteorology, how to get out of that situation, but I suppose I'll never know because I didn't go to the lectures. I have met famous people since then, people from the royal family to Jane Goodall, who's our proud ambassador and a dear friend. And for those of you going forward from here, wondering what you might do, there'll be ups and downs, and especially if you follow your passions, there'll be big ups and big downs. But Jane says one thing to me all the time: you can only do every day what you can do every day. Just make it a good day. So just do your best. That's from one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. And she also gets frustrated too. Actually, just near this building, one time she was doing a lecture, and afterwards we drove together and I said, "How are you, Jane?" And she said, "Oh, it's frustrating. Everybody wants everything now. It's just so much demand." And I turned to Jane and said, "Well, Jane, you can only do every day what you can do every day." And she looked at me and says, "I know that. I say that all the time." And I just looked at her and she said, "Oh, very good," quoting herself back to her. So the greatest of us also get frustrated. So don't be down on yourself if you do get frustrated and feel you're in a low. Find a way through it. Probably just to finish with though, one of the most inspiring things I've ever heard was from a widow. Now, over 1,000 rangers have lost their lives in the last 10 years that we know of, 158 last year. Most of these widows have no support. We eventually gave this support to this widow whose children were out of school because she could not afford to keep them there, working on farms now. And at the end she said, "Have you ever known total darkness in your life?" And I said, "Well, after a bit of thought, no, probably I've had low times, but total darkness, no." And she said, "This support is like a beam of light shining into the darkness. My children can go back to school, I can start up a small business. It's a beam of light into the darkness. And in that light, I plan to grow a seed of hope for my family." And I thought, how smart is that? We're not lighting up the whole room, we're just giving her a beam of light for which to work with. So in these times of bojo, ScoMo and Tweedledum, let the light shine in wherever you work, wherever you go, and grab those opportunities. Be brave. It doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means going through that fear to achieve what you wish to do with your life. Be brave, let the light in. Thank you very much.